Hello, everyone, and welcome to Balancing Productivity and Experiences. AI innovation demands a new approach. This webinar is sponsored by Red Hat and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Keith Ward. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I am delighted to be here with you today. But before we get to the content, we've got a discussion coming up that is just going to thrill you, I think. There are a few housekeeping items I need to let you know about. And the first one is we encourage your questions. Just put them in the questions box in your webinar control panel over there on your right-hand side. That's also the place to let us know where you're logging in from today. And I see a bunch of you are telling me where you are from. I love seeing that. So keep on letting us know where you are. I am in North Central Maryland, in case any of you are wondering. I'm kind of near Baltimore and DC and Pennsylvania, in between all three of those. So delighted to be here with you. Now, that Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be having. Try a browser refresher, too, if you can't hear something or see something, if the slides aren't updating, anything like that. Do a refresh. If that still doesn't work, let us know, and one of our fine, friendly people will hop on and help you out with that. Okay, next up, we've got some important handouts for you, including 2 Red Hat resources, an ebook entitled Top Considerations for Building a Foundation for Generative AI, and a PDF on evaluating frameworks to define a corporate AI strategy. Now that looks like great stuff. Those handouts are free, so download those now. You'll also find some other cool stuff in the handouts section, and one of those is a link to the ATM Decisions Group, which is a panel of IT decision makers that you can apply to join to participate in some more in-depth events and other opportunities. You'll also find a link to the ATM Events Center, which has our calendar of more upcoming events just like this one. Check out that calendar, see what you like, and sign up today. Third, we are also giving away money today. Money in the form of a $250 Amazon gift card. And note that you do have to hang around for the entire event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section right down there at the very bottom. And with that, let me get out of the way here and hand this over to our presenters for what I am sure is going to be an amazing discussion. Joining us from Red Hat to chat about AI are the great Stu Miniman. Now, Stu is an old friend of mine. He's also the Senior Director for Market Insights. He is joined by Senior Director of Portfolio Strategy, Brian Gracely, and E.J. Nadan, Global Chief Architect Leader for the Field CTO organization. That is quite a title. So Stu and the gang, doesn't that sound like a 70s soul group? Stu and the gang. They are ready to go, so I'm going to turn this over to them right now. Stu, you have got the mic. Rock on.
Thanks so much, Keith. Great to be here. Look, we all know that AI has the potential to be a driving force to accelerate innovation and new business growth across our industries. The question we have is your organization well placed to harness this wave of technology and deliver on the value to both your internal users and your external customers? Understanding how your application development platform influences the AI builders will be pivotal to staying competitive and avoiding the onset of what some are calling shadow AI. The panel here is going to discuss multiple viewpoints on improving productivity, automating efficiencies, and increasing resiliency in this new AI-driven economy. We're going to hope to give you some best practices as we leave here. And hi, I'm Stu Miniman. I'm a Senior Director at Red Hat. I have 2 distinguished strategists here with me. E.J. Nadan is a Global Chief Architect Leader for our Field CTO organization, travels a lot, talks to a lot of our customers. Brian Gracely is a Senior Director for our Portfolio Strategy Group, long experience, also talks to a lot of customers. And I'm coming from our Boston Global Briefing Center, where I'm always talking to lots of customers here. So Brian and Nadan, you both ready to get in and dig into some of the real challenges of AI?
Absolutely. It's great to be with you guys.
All right, Nadan, let's talk. AI. There's so much buzz out there, but coming into 2024, everybody always asks, how do I go from kind of that experimentation to real business value? Can you give us a little bit of an overview based on the conversations you're having with customers out there? How is AI transforming business operations today?
Yep. Glad to be here, Stu, and great question. I would start off by saying that, fundamentally, we as humans are meant to do better things. And AI is actually helping us uncover our own true potential. Individually, as humans, we can only go so far, but AI is like, we are in the rat race, let's say in the marathon, let's say the humans are running the marathon. AI is like somebody with a bike in a marathon. So that's the type of fuel that AI provides. And where we are from an operations perspective, Stu, I would say, you know, today, if we look at this, was actually something our own CTO, Chris Wright, said at the recently concluded summit, where when he was asked to predict the future, he said, we will evolve from a world of 100% applications to a world of 50% apps and 50% AI models. What does that mean? That's really indicative of how different types of logic can be actually addressed by AI, and it doesn't have to be code necessarily. Instead, it can be the models themselves that are actually incorporating the logic so that it is crunching tons and tons and tons of data in a way where it is applying said logic to uncover, predict, and also apply it to the operations of the business today. So there are several different ways. At the same time, I would also say, Stu, that it is kind of like, if we rewind back a few decades when, web services, when the internet started, when the web services started and so on, it took us a while to actually get to a point of maturity where, okay, this is when we need a website. This is what a website does. This is how web services flow. I take that analogy because we are in the beginning stages today. There is a lot of talk, like you said, about AI, but we will run into roadblocks. We will run into stumbling blocks, and then I would say in 1 or 2 years we will be at that point of stability where we have figured out some of the kinks and then start doing AI right. That's how I would characterize where we are today, Stu.
Yeah, Brian, I'd love to hear your feedback on that Chris Wright quote because at Red Hat, we've been working and helping customers with their application development for a long time. How will AI impact that application development as we see it?
Yeah, I think, and to clarify Chris's statement, what he basically said was, he expects, nearly every application to, have instances where it's going to be enhanced by AI, right? So hence him saying, for every AI, there's probably going to be a model. I think really what he's trying to highlight is a couple of things, and these are pretty important for organizations because they impact the technology, but how they work together and how they think about things. Oftentimes, we'll see in the press or it's sort of classified in the media that there's going to be one AI model to rule them all. And I think while that might be sort of interesting if we think about, for example, like you use one search engine in all your day-to-day activities, the reality in most organizations is that maybe a better analogy is think about like the databases in your organization, right? Most applications that you use for all sorts of things, from customer engagements to inventory to how you interact with your partners, whatever those things might be, they're typically going to have a database. And most companies don't have one single database that runs every activity within the business, right? Some are better at high-speed transactions. Others are better at time series and so forth. And so what I think Chris was really trying to imply was the idea that nearly every application within your organization, somebody's going to be asking the question, is there a way that we could use AI to either augment it to be better, leverage it to replace or improve some area of it, and what that's going to mean is a proliferation of not only improvements to applications, but also kind of a proliferation and an augmentation of AI in lots of different places in your organization. And what that's also probably going to mean is lots of different models that you're going to have to manage.
Yeah, Brian. It worries sometimes that companies will over pivot on some of what they're doing. When I think about my phone, it feels like every time I get an update, it's now enhanced with AI there. I'm wondering if you can share some examples of how AI is successfully being integrated to actually meet customer needs and not
Right.
just be AI washed.
Right. No, it's a great question because it's an interesting question because AI is not new technology, right? Right now, a lot of people sort of forget the fact that yes, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, they were sort of first exposed to it through ChatGPT. But if we really think about AI, it's been a technology that's been around for 20 plus years. And actually, if you speak to some folks who live and breathe it and have lived and breathed it for quite a while, they'll often tell you that the thing that we think about as AI or the sort of definition or example that we use, people are often sort of moving the goalpost. So it's things that we think of every single day, like when you're using your email system and it just sort of completes a word or completes a sentence for you. That is, that's sort of more old school predictive AI, but it's an AI function. When you are seeing, you're buying something and the recommendation system says, hey, because you bought these things, you might like these other things. That's a variation of AI, right? It's a predictive type of system. I think what we're seeing today, to put it in a kind of modern context, in a generative AI context, we are beginning to see people use chat bots and chat GPT types of things. We're seeing it begin to augment stuff like search, right? Those are the types of things that people are using on an everyday basis, and again, might not even be thinking about it. From a business perspective, a couple of things that jump to mind, and Naden pointed it out. We are still in early days, but we're seeing call centers be augmented with chatbots, right? So, being able to augment that staffing to be able to not have to worry about the day-to-day monotonous, type of, replace my password or what's my order number. We're seeing it augmenting application developers with co-pilot types of things where it's helping them write code, it's helping them write tests. So we're seeing in many cases developers are often maybe seeing 50% better augmentation of what they do. But then we see it in day-to-day tasks too. So things like computer vision that's looking at manufacturing lines as product is going along and looking for flaws and looking for defects. That's a form of AI that we may not all see, but we benefit from better products in the marketplace. We're seeing it for just task workers and knowledge workers, where the systems will look at large amounts of data. So let's say you're in a law firm or you're in a legal environment in which thousands of pages might come into your office at any given time. It can quickly summarize them. It can quickly look for the main topic. It can look for important things. So we're seeing it, kind of in lots of different things, especially in a business context. I think the simplest way for people to think about it is there ways that AI technology could augment the work that you do, in which case, there's going to be tons and tons of use cases. And then there's going to be a smaller subset which says, can we replace some function that would be better tasked, with an automated system that can work 24 hours a day, doesn't get tired, and look more of a replacement type of thing. But right now, we're seeing a lot of really interesting augmentation use cases, across the industry and across regions.
Yeah, so some great points there. Nadan, I don't think I've run across a company that isn't getting kind of the top down, go solve this, take advantage of this. Don't let us, miss this wave here. Especially got even the big companies you watch Wall Street, and it's all like, are you guys over investing? And they're like, no, this is one of these once in a generational things we have to be doing. I'm wondering, as everybody's trying to figure this out, what are some strategies that companies use to really accelerate their delivery of some of these AI assisted features that they're being asked to do?
Yeah, I'm going back in times too, and I'm reminded of similar things that have come down from leadership in the past. Why aren't you in the cloud? We should be in the cloud. We heard that the cloud saves cost and so on. Don't mean to go into that sidebar, but it is a similar edict that is coming down from leadership. So what is critical here, Stu, is it is not just about doing AI. It is really about asking ourselves, do we have the right infrastructure in place to do AI? We need some basic foundational elements to be in place to even jump into AI, so to speak. So one strategy is to make sure, yes, we have infrastructure today, but AI operates at a different scale. It needs different types of resources. Does the enterprise have that type of resources? And if not, what does it take to get there? That's first. And Brian talked about, the different ways of automating and augmenting use cases. So where is the automation strategy overall in the enterprise today? That is something to look at as well. Are the right things being automated? And imagine, applying AI to what we experienced recently, where airlines stopped flying and there were, multiple systems broken down for a whole week, travelers stranded, and so on. If that type of a code propagation had actually happened using AI, just imagine, where we could be. So making sure that the right things are automated, and if not, the right checks and balances are in place. That would be the automation strategy. um, AI can also, if it falls into the hands of the bad actors, they can actually do much more damage than they are doing today. So, how are enterprises placed from a security strategy standpoint? Is the enterprise secure? Instead of, a human trying to penetrate, if it is AI trying to do that, is the enterprise well positioned? So that is it's not just about using AI for the benefit of customers. It's also, what if the wrong people get, AI falls into the wrong hands? How is the enterprise impacted? That needs to be in place as well. Finally, there is also something to be said about the ethical aspects. If we let AI do it all, what kinds of judgment is it making? What are those rules? And more importantly, they have started to come. Europe is leading the way in compliance and regulations on, yes, if you use AI, you are still liable for certain aspects of the outcomes and so on. So to make sure that, technically it may be the right thing to do, but ethically, is that the right thing? And where do the use cases go? And what are the outcomes? And data, data, data. So if the data is wrong, the AI is only as good as the data that it is fed. Here is an opportunity, just like cloud was a catalyst to do many of the right things, take a step back and making sure we are doing it right. This is an opportunity for us to do some data cleansing. What types of data is it getting access to? What should it be fed? More importantly, what should it not be fed? So automation, infrastructure, data, security, compliance. Those are the 5 bullets that come to mind, Stu.
Yeah, those are some good things. Don, I worry sometimes when we talk about the past, because we all live through some of the bumps and bruises of cloud adoption. Companies that just way overspent or didn't understand what they were getting into. I listened to Brian talk about some of the things that AI is going to do, and I'm like, gosh, I have enough time like searching on the internet, and do I trust those sources, or do I understand enough of the answer to know whether or not it answers what I've had? So, Nadine, I want to come back to you. One of the things that you hear is that AI should really help improve productivity. It's something we've looked at, since the industrial age, that, there's always be like, okay, like computers and mobile should be increasing our overall efficiency. Do we think AI is really going to improve, productivity and like help reduce repetitive tasks? Is it too early for us to understand that?
So I like actually what I'm going to take a cue of what Brian said earlier. The augmentation is where we are best placed for AI to improve productivity. So by that, what I mean is, if there is a human team that is doing, executing critical tasks, workflows, and so on today, albeit, aided a bit, maybe semi-automated, and so on, and it is doing good for the customers, for the service providers, for the, realizing the outcomes, enhancing that and doing maybe 10 times more of the, processing the data that is processed, that is where the I see the productivity enhancements, because it is like a superhuman is joining the team and actually adding more fuel, more power, more horsepower to that. That's where I see productivity being realized and lesser risk. um, the second area would be where we, like, imagine having to do the search yourself and then having going to different pages and doing the research instead of AI actually providing that back to you. So where there is much more data that needs to be crunched and processed, that's another area where I see productivity as well. Now, at the same time, organizations need to be resilient too. When there is, when lots of data needs to be processed, to your point, if it is the right data or if it is being misused to, from an attack vector standpoint. So that's another area where organizations can judiciously apply AI, realize productivity, and be, quite frankly, more secure.
Yeah, I think we could have a whole hour on some of these topics here. I tell you, as somebody that watches the space, I keep thinking about, like, Google summarized the results. I'm like, isn't their whole business built on ads? If I don't have to scroll through or click any of those things anymore, I could see a collapse of some systems. Brian, I guess one of the things when we're in some of these fast-paced, changing environments, how do we make sure that we're, getting continuous learning feedback loops on these AI systems? Because, we all talk in this industry. It's like, oh yeah, oh, I heard about this. It's like, oh no, that's from like a month ago. You're out of date already.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is, you're going to build sort of feedback loops in the same way that you do today in terms of, what's important in terms of whether it's collecting customer feedback, direct feedback, whether it's looking at the quality of the thing that you output. You can't just assume that because you threw some AI at something, you sprinkled some AI at something, that the results are going to be what you want them to be, but also that the interaction that the people are going to, the people that are interacting with the system are going to be what they want. So I think we're going to see, and we've seen this already. I was talking to some folks recently who do, voice interactive AI with systems, whether it's, call centers or prompts or whatever. And they're building in, elements of the UI design that says, hey, were those results positive? Were those results what you expected? Did you enjoy this experience? And so, the same way that, we do things from a human perspective and we're trying to read people's sentiment. We're trying to figure out, is that person making eye contact with me? We're going to do similar types of things with AI systems as we think about the user interface and the user interaction, right? So, those are things that we're going to learn over time because, as Naden mentioned, we're kind of augmenting, the human teams. We're augmenting the human experience, and so we have to look for those things that humans inherently understand. They understand when people seem upset. They understand when they raise their voice or they convey the idea of confusion. We're going to have to build those things into the user experience, but it's the same types of things that we've built into user experiences over time. You mentioned search. Search in the early days literally had a button that says, "Do you feel lucky?" Right? Because they didn't really know how to rank things, how to make them in the right order, and they learned over time how to do things that help people go, oh, okay, I'm processing a lot of information. So we're going to learn those things over time. I think we're going to learn them on a case by case basis, right? You're not going to just be able to say what worked in a manufacturing floor is going to work in a retail store outlet. But that's going to be one of the bigger challenges in terms of not just providing the right information or hopefully not incorrect information, but how do we create it in a way that people feel like it's not a weird robotic experience entirely, right? Because we've seen that fall down with technology in the past.
Yeah. Naden, you mentioned some of the things we need to architect for AI really build on what we've been doing for kind of cloud native architectures. I need scalability. If I haven't already done automation, we've already gone beyond human scale, and AI is going to put even more stresses and strains on that. So when I look at deploying AI applications and architecting them, reliability, performance, security, and hopefully everybody's a little bit concerned about sustainability, because if you've got GPUs and the like, that's drawing even more power than I did before. What are some of the biggest challenges in looking at those architectures, maintaining and make sure that I'm building both for today and going to be acceptable for the future?
the single word that comes to mind is governance, Stu, because just because of the buzz, the excitement, the fun, quite frankly, there are bound to be many who experiment, who jump in, and then there is a delayed realization. Maybe this is not the way it should have been done. So that governance, it really starts with, what is the use case? Is this the right use case to even begin addressing? Number one, what's the targeted outcome? And then the type of environment where the AI models need to be deployed, and the governance also includes what types of platforms are being introduced as part of the architecture. Openness for the AI platform is very important. You don't want to be held hostage to a single AI model provider. I would say open source is a good approach because there is continuous collaboration. Open source models they better serve the needs because it's not just about today. You can evolve. They can evolve with your needs, and there is a collaboration that is happening there. So there is that, and then there is existing governance there. When it comes to architecture, it is technology, IT governance, security, all of those. AI needs to be part of an integral part of that. So it is not about necessarily having a separate AI governance model, even though that is a desired outcome of making sure that AI is addressed from all aspects of business and IT governance because it goes cross enterprise. So back to your question about the reliability, it all starts with doing the right thing from the get go and changing course as needed because new models may come up, there may be new requirements, maybe the existing models are not really serving the needs, maybe it is actually unpacking data that it should not have access to. So the ability to actually react and then change as needed is also part of the governance. Otherwise enterprises are going to be landing with a lot of chaos at an exponential level just because of the magnitude of what AI can do. Um, I'm going to go back to what Chris Wright said. In a way, the 50% apps and 50% models is also because it's about funding. Where is as part of the transformation, where will the funding be allocated? Is it to build more applications or having infrastructure for doing more AI? And that in itself is going to kind of the split that Chris predicted is going to happen as a result. That's more about the financial governance as to where would the investments be made going forward. So when I try to sum it all up with a single word, that's what comes to mind for enterprises to make sure it is in place. You don't want to, just like security shouldn't be an afterthought, governance should definitely not be an afterthought. It's way too late.
All right. You brought up the topic of open source, and I'm wondering if we can focus in on that a little bit. Of course, Red Hat, we're very vocal as to our thoughts as to how that should be, but there's some different considerations for how open source plays into AI versus how it's played out for the last few decades of open source. So, I'd love you to start, and Brian, I know you've got some strong opinions on this too.
Yep, this is yet another area where collaboration is a mandate. We cannot do this, no company can do this on their own. And this is one where there needs to be, ideas needs to be brought up, and then we need to build upon each other's ideas. And the models themselves, when they are in the open source community, just like we have seen over decades to, whether it be the operating system, the container platform, the automation platform, well, the open source community is frankly the research and development labs, I would say, for software development in general. And the fact that AI models can actually come from the open source community is just extending that to data. So this way, when multiple enterprises, they may be competing in the same business domain, but nonetheless, when there is collaboration happening, we are better. Rather than taking a proprietary approach where we are constrained with restrictions imposed by said organization on those models, you can only do X, rather than you can build your own model working with the open source community so that you can benefit by collaboration. There is a give and take. And when we collaborate, innovation happens. The models that actually come in the future will build upon what there are today, and there again, multiple perspectives, diverse perspectives actually make that happen. That type of innovation, Stu.
Yeah. I mean, I'll jump in. I think some of the things that I've been hearing from customers and different companies around this is, as Naden mentioned, there is a certain level of concern that companies have about, bringing their business to AI, if you will, right? So the idea of, that in order to create a great AI experience, augment what they, the services they deliver, they're going to have to bring a certain amount of their business to that, bring their business data, bring their expertise. And there's concern about sharing that in the same way that they've always been concerned about that sort of information. So the idea that they can get access to models that can be freely used, freely modified and so forth, they're really excited about that because it gives them a sense of control that they've had for decades around how they run applications, how they run their data. I think they're excited about the idea that, just like they've seen with open source in the past, they're going to be able to take advantage of kind of the benefit of working with world-class data scientists in different domains, right? It may be, working with data scientists from Red Hat and IBM. It might be from Meta, but it also might be people specifically working on, healthcare and genomics. It might be people working on, advanced sciences. It might be people working on, something like analytics that could be applied to sports, but could also be applied to retail. And so they're excited about being able to work with those communities, having control over where their data goes. And then I think the other piece of it is there's still a lot of understanding of, well, what does open source mean in an AI world, right? In the world that we're used to, which is sort of software open source, you're simply contributing code. The code doesn't necessarily have ties back to your business. As we get into AI with open source with AI, now we're talking about models, we're talking about data, and so I think a lot of them are still trying to understand, what is that going to mean? What's that going to mean in terms of sharing data, but also just simple everyday things like it feels like there's a new model every 3 days or every week or every 2 weeks. My business probably can't keep up with that, nor do we maybe necessarily need that. Is open source going to help me do basic things like if I want to just update a model once a year or once every 6 months or whenever I feel like it, is it going to give me more control than relying on some giant Uber model that's also managing search for the internet or building movies for Hollywood or something along those lines? So I think the feedback that we're getting from people is they're excited about it. They're excited about the control that they expect to have over this. They're excited about working with communities, but they're also excited that there's people that they're going to be able to collaborate around their learning curve. Because for many companies, this is still an area that, as it proliferates in their business, is going to have a big learning curve, and their ability to work with people that are also learning and can be 5 minutes ahead of them, 2 weeks ahead of them is really exciting. So we kind of get the best of open source along with some new elements that we're all trying to sort of work through and understand together.
Yeah, you both have some great points there. Just to kind of wrap up on that topic, when the generative AI wave hit, it was oh well, there were some proprietary models out there that just had screaming performance, and in the less than 2 years since that came out, we've already seen that open source can meet the performance that the proprietary models had, and as we've seen, open source as the default for software development, we can meet the security requirements with open source, and so open source is going to have a strong play. And Brian, you tied in a key thing we've definitely seen at Red Hat. Our customers, security, their data is something they're very concerned about. So surprised that many of the customers we talk about are just like, hey, while I'm learning in this phase here, I'm going to get a bunch of GPUs. I'm going to put them, in my locked doors and make sure that, they're not connected to the public internet or some other thing, and they can do that. I know, Brian, I've heard you say it, that, hybrid, that AI is one of these killer use cases for hybrid environments, which of course, we at Red Hat for more than a decade been saying, our software is going to live wherever you are, public cloud,
Right.
data center, hosted environments, edge environments, and all around. So yeah,
Right.
so some really, really good points there. So, it's funny when we look at this, Nadan, you talked about some of the journeys we've talked about. I was just talking to a customer here that, when you talk about cloud native, they're still really early in their journey, as opposed to, we've had many customers that have been on this journey for, 5, 7, even 10 years or more. Most people are still relatively early in their AI journey. What advice do you give them? Whether, I've been looking at it for a couple of years, or, I just inherited, some new, mandate from before, how should they start?
Great question. So I would say, I'm going to say something radical. I think it's radical. Um, Shadow AI is okay. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is start small. It is okay to experiment. Let there be freedom for different teams to try it out with different use cases, but they don't necessarily go too far. I'm not saying there should be, if there are, 50 different teams doing it on the same day. That's not what I'm talking about. It is okay to experiment. This is something enterprises that just kind of don't do anything, they're going to fall behind. So it would be good to at least kick the tires, get to know what is it that AI can do, apply it to a few use cases, and see the results for yourself. And there are ways to do this without actually making a huge investment. There are environments available where you can actually be part of the community to do such experimentation. For example, we announced Instruct Lab, where you can actually be part of the community to experiment with different models. So you don't have to worry about a huge infrastructure investment and so on to understand what could be done. So allow that type of experimentation is what I would say first. But at the same time, at some point, enterprises do also have to make sure, okay, what is the overall strategy? How does it fit in with their business strategy? What outcomes are they looking at? Where do they want that extra superhuman power to be applied? And like I said earlier, how are they doing on automation? And it's a good time to go back and revisit the existing strategies to make sure that the AI doesn't come and then there is a delayed realization. Oh my God, we have not even figured out this aspect of our data strategy yet. So that strategic approach is important. And then please don't go all in without making sure there is a plan for the governance model as well. So experiment, strategize, govern. Those are the 3 pointers I would give.
Yeah, I'd love to sort of build on that. I think one of the sort of guidances I give to a lot of companies is think of AI as sort of a next era in where you've been. But if you put it in context, the gap between sort of the pre-cloud era, where everything was very centralized, obviously everything typically was on premises, and then you move to the cloud era. There were a number of things that happened. Nod mentioned sort of used the word shadow. We used shadow IT. Moving to the cloud. But what happened there was essentially people said, I'm diversifying from IT. I'm sort of saying IT doesn't matter anymore. And then what we saw over time was we saw a certain amount of success happen. People experimented with the technology. They learned how to build. And then in many cases, they came back and said, but I don't want to operate this. I don't necessarily want to have to do the day-to-day anymore. I just like the excitement of the new. And I think when we think about AI, we want to learn as much from, sort of that shadow IT period, the cloud period, as anything, because the things that will be repetitive, you're going to build applications more quickly, or you're going to make changes more quickly, right? That's the reinforcement part of AI. But you've got to have those foundational pieces in place, right? You're going to want platforms in place that allow those teams, whether they are data scientists and ML ops teams, to be able to work together, right? Not have to rebuild those after the fact that 6 different teams have done 6 different things. You're going to want to have really good hygiene and infrastructure in place to do pipelines, because you're going to rapidly iterate on applications and on models and so forth. And you're going to want to, almost as importantly, you're going to want things like cost control, not to mention governance, but you're going to want cost control because, a bad day in the cloud when you were building a Java application was one thing. A runaway GPU for an extra month can be a humongous, unexpected cost. So you're going to want to, again, take a lot of those learnings that you had from the cloud world that you probably have in place today and make sure that those are the foundations that, again, if shadow AI happens with a few teams, that's fine, but you've got those foundations in place. And the good news is so much of that you spent the last 3 years, 5 years, 7 years building up those muscles, building up those platforms and those systems. AI can be a natural next evolution to those things.
Yeah, so some really sound advice from both of you. I know it was a phrase I used to use for many years is, first you want to make sure, you've modernized your platform, then you can take care of the applications. You want to make sure that those foundational layers, are solid because we all know you don't want to be building a house of cards for what you're doing there. So lots of room for experimentation. Definitely one of these waves. I always joke I'm old enough now that I remember when like the first graphical browsers in the web and like showing it to people and it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, but not quite sure where the next year or two would be. And it feels, in many ways that's where we are for AI is we've had some solid, customer adoption of some technologies. We at Red Hat have been working with many companies on their AI journey for years. And, you both went through some of the things that we can just accelerate what we're doing. So want to give you both, your final notes and takeaways. Nadan, we'll start with you.
I would say, in addition to everything already said, keep the word open in mind. And that is not just about open source. The platforms, you need an open platform so that you can run the model of your choice. You can bring the model of your choice. Don't be constrained by a single vendor who has a model. Have the flexibility, the freedom. You should have the freedom of choice to bring the model you want to do AI right.
Yeah. I think the thing I would add, above and beyond a lot of things we talked about today is, so much of AI right now is still a big idea, a whiteboard, a napkin, whatever it might be, and you're not always exactly sure how to get there. And so the spirit of excitement, the spirit of innovation is fantastic, and you should embrace that and encourage it. But equally, what I would say is because the resources that you'll have for AI might be limited, like the number of data scientists in your organization or the number of just freely available GPUs, are sometimes hard to come by. Make sure that you're, putting some communication channels in place, whether those are center of excellence or just, communities of practice, whatever they are within your organization, so that as one group is learning something, whether it's how to deploy faster, how to cleanse data, how to, use a model better, use that learning within your organization. Feel free to share it just as much as you're excited to share that great AI demo, because helping your organization, the multiple points that want to do things with AI, accelerate their learning curve is going to be, you're going to be as much of a superhero doing that as you are being the team that builds that first really, really cool application. So, don't forget about that sharing piece as much as, open technologies and open communities.
Yeah, I believe it was Clay Christensen that said that, strategy is something that you should have, but it shouldn't be in granite. Something you should be revisiting, on technology like this, probably a quarterly basis, and understand what's going on there. Well, Brian and Nadan, great conversation. Really appreciate all your insights and feedback that you've had from customer conversations that you have out there. And for the audience, want to thank you. Hope you found this conversation both informative and valuable. And please feel free to get in touch with us if you have any questions beyond this webcast. And Keith, going to toss it to you to take us home.
That will be my pleasure, Stu. Thank you so much. Wow. Was that not a fantastic discussion, folks, of everything AI, what's coming, what's happening now, what you need to be doing? I mean, AI is everywhere, and these guys today just did a fantastic job kind of setting the stage, and I just learned so much, and I hope you did today as well, just like me. So with that, everyone, we are about out of time. But before we wrap up, I've got to give away that Amazon gift card. As I mentioned at the top, you do have to be stick around during the entire event to be eligible. And we do have a winner of the $250 gift card for this event. And that winner is Troy Horton from Illinois. Congratulations, Troy. We will be in touch ASAP to get you your card. And with that, folks, we are wrapped. On behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Red Hat for making this event possible. And thanks, as always, for attending and for your great questions. And they were not able really to take questions today, but I did want to mention that they will be following up with you on any and all questions that you asked. And you did ask a bunch. So sit tight, and you will be hearing from Red Hat on that. I'm gone now, folks. I'll see you in the next one. Hope you have a great rest of your day.